undergraduate student of my institute.
Okay.
She is in first year, and she is electronics student.
Okay. Very nice.
Yes, ma'am. I'm a first year undergraduate from Electronics and Communication.
Very cool. I'm going to see if I can get my screen to share. Let me see this one.
Yes, Alexis, it's visible.
Okay. All right.
So it's a great topic, Alexis, for the students who are especially in a first year or second year who want to start a successful career in IT industry. So, Alexis, I just want to know, as we all know that US, if you talk about, it's a big hub for IT industry. Can you please brief a little bit about the companies there? For example, Facebook, Google, Twitter, and there are lots and lots of companies. Can you just please brief a little bit about it?
I am so sorry. So could you rephrase that? You're
Well,
wanting to.
yeah, I was just asking about the IT industries in US. It's, as we know that it's a big hub in the
Oh
world.
yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah.
if you talk about Facebook, Twitter, Google, Amazon, means a lot of industries are there who are giving who are widely spread all over the world and giving a job to many people around. So can you please just give a brief that what exactly they used to have such kind of companies in US, and what if any of the student from here want to work in those companies, so can you have any idea about that? Can you please brief little?
As far as their recruiting strategy and hiring practices for those specific companies or some of those larger hubs, I couldn't tell you I've not worked for them, but so I can't tell you exactly what they're looking for. But I feel like it is, while they're located here in the US, I do feel like their practices have become much more global. And so there are opportunities more internationally, especially for those tech industries. So I really think that if anybody wanted to work for them, I do think they are very selective and hard to get into. But I do think it's worth, of course, trying, connecting on LinkedIn, finding, people who work there, and seeing if you can, what the steps are would be my recommendation.
All right. Sumit, do you want to ask anything to her?
Yes, sir. Actually, am I audible?
Yes, you
Yes.
are.
Yes, ma'am. Actually, like we all students who are undergraduates, especially in India, like to make the career in IT sector because it is booming very fastly all over the world. So, and most of the IT companies in India, or we can say MNCs, used to offer us for the projects, basically mostly in USA. So, is it uh, is it flexible for Indians as an Indian to work in USA and to work with the IT sector of USA? I mean, for as an Indian perspective, is it flexible to work out of the country in an IT sector?
Um, you know, I feel like I am not entirely sure how their rules and regulations are. I do know the company that I did work for was a global company, and we did have a actually technology center in India, and their hours, a lot of their processes, of course, they followed in-country laws and regulations. So whatever those employment laws are in India, but they were culturally, as far as the way the company was run, the way the processes were, very much folded into that U.S. company. And of course, because it was based out of India, of course, they were recruiting in the country. So I think a lot of the locations may have their own place, so their own building structure in India. And so obviously that would be, a really good location to work from. But I do think some of those others are branching out, and there is the remote capability. I'm not 100% sure on that, but of course, it is worth investigating and seeing, because you don't know until you find out. So it's always worth that investigation. Did that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am.
Alexis, can you please describe about the work you are doing with your current organization?
Yes, I can. So currently I work as a compliance manager in a staffing company. So a lot of what I'm doing has to do with employment laws today, making sure that we're doing the proper background checks, or that there is a U.S. Form that we have to fill out as U.S. citizens in order to work in the United States, making sure those are done appropriately. We have different processes that staffing or recruiters have to follow, making sure that they're following some of those processes, putting in the proper notes on employees. A lot of it's more on the HR side. So I have worked, that was part of the reason I picked this topic, knowing that you all are focused in learning about IT. I have worked on both sides. I have been a troubleshoot support for an applicant tracking system. I have helped configure and build and put together a knowledge management system. And of course, I've worked most of my life in compliance and HR. So I've had both perspectives working in IT as the person building, as well as the customer, doing the requests and specifications for projects. So that was actually why I picked this topic. It's the communication piece can be very difficult for everybody. That was why. So today, yep, just compliance is really my role.
Well, that's wonderful, Alexis. I just want to know that as we are in COVID era right now, and we heard a lot that it has a lot of impact in US. So I just want to know how much it affected the work culture in USA. Means whether about industry or the people or the working. Can you please tell what exactly is the situation right now?
As far as with the pandemic?
Yeah, pandemic.
Well, it's interesting. I go into work into a physical office every day. A lot of what within staffing, especially with what we staff for, it is kind of a face-to-face activity. So I do go into an office every day, but there are a lot of people who are still working remotely out of their homes. I think a lot of places are slowly trying to go back to face-to-face. I have children, and they are both still remote. They have not been in a school building in over a year at this point. So it's still a pretty big thing, but it feels like it is getting a little better. But work has definitely been impacted for a lot of people, and they are still home.
Well, same situation here. It has affected a lot, and we are just fighting for our economic growth also. GDP is also getting very less. So lots of people has lost the job, and so many difficult situation has arisen here in India also. Well, anyways, it's a tough time right now, so we have to face it anyhow. Well, Soumya, so shall we start the session?
Sure.
Yes, sir, sure.
All right. So you guys can see my screen, correct?
Yes, ma'am. We
All
can.
right, perfect. Okay, so you know who I am, Alexis Fillos. I live in Atlanta, Georgia. It is still dark outside because it is 7:07 a.m. here. So for you guys, good afternoon or good evening. And for me, hopefully it'll be a good morning. I currently, as I had said, I do work as a compliance manager, which is really a lot of HR and employment law. And as I did say, I have sat on both sides because I have done some IT work before. That started when I was in compliance, doing some audits and assessments, making sure our data privacy was locked down, making sure our access to sensitive warehouses, data warehouses, or locations were actually physical locations as well, were actually secure. So I've sat on both sides of that before. And I've noticed just in my career in 15 plus years, a really difficult element is the communication. And especially, I think, when you're in IT. And we're going to kind of talk about that in this discussion. So I did want this to be a discussion, and you're going to see there's some slides that have a gold star at the top right. And so there's going to be questions. I have 2 experiments in this that we're going to do. So that'll be interactive as well. So I do want this to work as a discussion. Okay. So I can guess, I have an idea as to why a lot of you may have selected IT as your profession. It is the foundation of a lot of businesses. It's what is connecting so many processes. It can make things more efficient, increase communication. Why did some of you select this as your course of study and as your profession? This is a gold star, so I want you guys to participate. So does anybody have a story as to why they selected IT?
Yeah, students, why you want to select this field as an IT person?
Ma'am, maybe because this field is booming so much and it has a lot of opportunity for us to seek more and more knowledge, and even it has more and more opportunity to explore with the new kind of people and clients as well. So maybe that would be a major thing why we students used to go in this IT field.
Right. It really, I mean, I would fully agree. It really is. It's a great field. There's a lot of opportunity, and you can be very creative in it as well. I think it's a very good field. So with that said, it does have a lot to offer. And obviously, like I said, there's, a lot of creativity. One of the questions I have, what kind of challenges do you expect to face or have you already faced as a student? And how do you expect to work through them?
uh, by making more and more knowledge about that particular stuff which is trying to bring an obstacle in our path, and by actually we have not yet entered in that field, so we just don't know that what kind of problems we are going to face. But still, if such kind of problem we are going to face, then we'll sort out it with our potential. Maybe we are a young generation and we have such a potential to fight over any kind of problem.
Right, right. It's interesting because a lot of the things that I had thought many years ago when I was thinking about an IT profession, um, I was thinking about keeping up with technology and learning new skills because it is ever changing. One of the things that I'm going to let you know, work now on communicating with team members, with if you're working on a project, if you're having to troubleshoot, work on the communication needed. And we're going to go through that right now. So the reason I say that's likely to become a struggle at some point, if it hasn't already, is there is a struggle with what you know with your education, what you've learned, a lot of the jargon. So you're going to have to really bridge that gap for people who don't know that same information. So I say here, start with the end in mind, and we're going to do an experiment on this slide. So has anyone ever heard of the curse of knowledge?
The curse of knowledge. How can
if you haven't, that's okay. It's an experiment that was conducted in the early 1990s, I think, at Harvard. And what it entailed was they got a group of people and they separated them into two groups. There was a group that they were called the tappers. They were told, okay, we're going to tell you to tap a song with your finger to the other group, which were the listeners, and let us know, do you think that your partner or the listener is going to guess correctly the song that you're tapping? And the tapper said, oh, absolutely, 50% of the time. They said they're going to guess it correctly 50% of the time because it's so clear what the song is. And so we're going to do that experiment right here to see if you guys can guess the song. And so this is going to illustrate what the curse of knowledge is. So of course, I know what the song is, and I'm going to tap it on my computer. You can hear, I did test this before. You will be able to hear, and then you can try to guess if you know this song. And if you don't, that's okay. So everybody ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so. Does anybody know what that song was?
No, actually not, I guess. If anybody knows, then they can feel free to answer.
Okay. Well, that's what happened with this. So they guessed that somebody would know and get the correct answer 50% of the time. And it was really 2% of the time. The song, for reference, was Happy Birthday. So happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. So I could hear it in my head. I was singing in my head, and I could hear it very clearly as I tapped on my computer. The problem was because I knew and I could hear the tune, it was skewed. My understanding, I had this previous knowledge. I knew what I was going to tap. I could hear the tune in my head, and it was very clear to me. But none of you could understand because you didn't have the other information to really hear that tune. So that's what a curse of knowledge is. And a lot of time, especially when it comes to an IT professional working on a project, you have a lot more information about some of maybe the infrastructure, maybe the tools or the language or whatever different operations you're leveraging on a project or troubleshooting a problem. You may have this additional knowledge that your customers, your team members, the project team, they may not have. They may not know. So sometimes you have to be careful that you're not working from information and knowledge that others don't have, because that can obviously cause problems later down the road in this project or in your task. So I say on this slide, start with the end in mind. And what I mean by that is really discover what the customer wants as an end result. So there were a lot of times where when I worked on an applicant tracking system or in a knowledge management system, people would come to me and say, could you add this field? And that was all they would say. We want this one field or this one checkbox. Okay, well, for me, I needed to know that's great. We can do that. Let's figure out why. At the end, if I add that, what are you hoping that it will do for you? And then some of them would say, we're hoping we can report on that. We're hoping we could have that workflow to another field. If then, once they tell me the end result of what they're hoping for, I can decide, okay, let me see, that may not work this way. We can do that, but it's probably not going to result in what you're hoping it will do. So really make sure that it's connecting the dots. What they're asking is actually going to result in that end product that they are looking for. I always say to people, repeat what they're saying, or repeat what's being asked. So I've gotten in the habit in my professional life of saying, so I'm understanding you're saying X, Y, and Z, just to make sure that we're on the same page, that what I heard them say is correct. So I would say repeat as a question what they've said to you to make sure it's correct. And then this one, explain in terms that they understand, and always ask if they need clarity. When you're in IT, you don't even know how often you understand terminology and tools that no one else does. And you're not going to know when you encounter that situation. An example, the term Python script, or a SQL, or an automation anywhere type bot. You may know, and these may make sense to you, but to somebody who's not in the IT profession, they're not going to know. There's a lot of information and terms and IT jargon that you're learning about right now that the average person doesn't know. And so, watch people's faces, make sure if they're kind of just looking like this and agreeing, they may just be agreeing because they don't understand some of the words that you're saying, some of those IT tools or functions. When I was recruiting or helping review resumes for some IT roles back a long time ago, I got to a section, it was my first time in anything IT, and there was a section that said languages, and it was listing the different IT languages. That was the first time I had ever heard of that. To me, languages was Spanish, French, English. I had not seen that, and even to know that that was an IT jargon. So remember that you have a lot more knowledge and understanding where you're coming from, and you have to be sensitive to that when you're working with other people, is that you may be suffering from the curse of knowledge. Any questions on this one? Or comments?
Like sometime if such kind of the curse of knowledge, what you have explained, there will be some miscommunication in between the maybe either we are talking about the colleagues, or we are talking about the customer. For that, what we can do to reassure that there will be no miscommunication between two bodies?
So if there's, I would always start with some of these steps to ensure that there's not the miscommunication, is just repeating what people are saying, asking if they need clarity, or asking if you use a word, some Python script, explaining what that is a little bit at the beginning. So I'll write a Python script, and explain a little bit to give some context, making sure that you give maybe more information, explain really from a basic level to ensure that they understand. Sometimes it may be more than what they need, but at least it's baseline. You're always explaining from the very beginning what is needed in order to be successful. That's how I always do it, because you don't know where somebody is in their level of understanding when it comes to your processes and knowledge, and that's why you would always start kind of a little very beginning, a little bit elementary, just so that you can be sure that they're understanding some of those. Was that helpful?
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, ma'am.
Okay. Yes.
Yes. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Yes, I want to ask that you are related regarding communication skills. So as we all know that there are some exams, right, like IELTS exam that will be held on international level. So how these exams helped in a significant way to work in IT field?
The exam?
Right. ELTS exam, like international exams for communication skills checking, right? In that way.
I actually have not, I don't know, have not heard of those. So exactly, could you give some context on what they are and what they do?
No, these exams will be held on the basis of regarding that if I applied for visa or that exam will require a score to 7 to 8 out of 10 marks. So that will be a basic exam for applying visa and passport or to reside
I
in
gotcha.
USA or any other countries like England.
Okay, I see what you're saying. I am not sure what those entail. That might be more. I'm not entirely sure what those entail, but if that is an exam in order to be able to work internationally, I would imagine I don't think that has to do with communication in a professional setting as far as making sure that your project is going clearly. That's probably more on the maybe it's testing your ability with language communication, understanding, speaking and writing in different languages. I would imagine that's what that is referencing. I'm not entirely sure. I've not heard of an exam like that. For
Yes, ma'am.
context,
But
I
yes,
go ahead.
okay, you didn't have, I get that you didn't have that information, but I want to know that how we get that fluentness in that English language, because as we all know that India is a language where we all know that Hindi or other regional languages. So how we get that fluentness in English or any other language like French, German, any other language?
Yeah, that is a real challenge. Honestly, that I had not even added the layer on for this topic. It is something that is, I will say, going to have to be a lot of practice and research independently to figure out. So all of you are pretty good with English, so that is definitely a plus. But when I would definitely watch, if there are YouTube videos to assist with it, or anything to help so that you can bridge that gap with that language barrier, that will definitely be of benefit to you. Unfortunately, that is something I'm an English speaker and I've never lived anywhere but the United States. So I don't have any other language skills, and that's never been a hurdle that I've had to cross yet. So is that something that all of you are going to be obliged to take at some point?
Yes, ma'am. But as we all know that IT in our IT field, we will choose that a person which have exactly up to date knowledge regarding IT sector. So in India, there are some of institutions like IITs and few IITs and triple ITs which are really up to date institute to compete with USA level. But not all institute in India they are providing that up to date knowledge regarding that IT field. So if we have to compete with the US persons and US IT sectors employees, then how we get that knowledge, that up to date knowledge?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Um, yeah, that's a tough one. That is something to definitely worth investigating. I can't answer that off the top of my head. So some of these things I will say, being um, in the United States and having only lived here and only worked here, that's a challenge that I have not faced. So I don't have expert knowledge on that and how to obtain that. But I can say I would start investigating now. Some of you are in your first year. It's worth looking that over and hearing stories from what others have done who are currently working, and finding out what their experience has been and having them provide you with some tips of what you can do. Because that really is something that you're going to have to think about sooner rather than later. And it does sound like it could be pretty stressful. That would be my tip for you, definitely.
Okay,
I'm
thanks,
sorry I
ma'am.
can't help. I'm sorry I can't help more specifically on that. That's one that I am
No, no,
not
ma'am,
aware of.
that's not matter. Actually, you are giving your precious time. That's will be more thankful we are for that.
Yep. Okay. So on this slide, I talk about using descriptive communication. This is also a slide where I have an experiment, so to speak. So when there is a new project, or when there's troubleshooting or a build that you have to do in IT, sometimes it really helps to use stories, analogies, or images when and if they're available. That can always help bridge that gap with understanding. And I like telling this story. One of my first times in IT, I was working, it was a compliance role. We were doing a lot of access reviews and making sure our infrastructure was secure. And our IT security lead came down to me, and he was very upset, as far like nervous. He said, I just found out one of our locations is open. And I said, well, it can't be. I do access reviews. We have to go through a pretty lengthy request process in order for people to gain access to this one share. So it couldn't be open. And he says, no, it's open. And I thought, I don't understand. And we had a meeting, and there was a lot of us at the table. No one was upset. No one was nervous. We didn't see the priority. We're like, I don't understand. What are you saying? He said, think of our infrastructure as a building with locked doors. So all of us are in the building. The doors are locked. No one else can get in. This one location, let's call it top secret, super secret data. It's supposed to have several locks on the door to keep it secure. He said, there is a nested group in some of these global groups called everyone. And that is allowing everyone within the company to get in and out at any time that they want. And he said, type this in. And so I typed in our Windows Explorer, and sure enough, I was able to get into this one very locked down location. So it took a couple hours of him running around like crazy, trying his best to tell us what was happening. And it wasn't until he could tell the story and then have us type in, and we could find exactly what he was talking about. So at that point, we were all hands on deck to fix this issue. But again, it took a few tries to try to get us to connect to the level of risk in this scenario, because we didn't understand what a global group was and what the everyone global group was and what it did. So try to get as much on the front end using, if you have pictures or if you have stories or analogies, or if you could show them on the computer itself, that can always help. So we're in this experiment, I'm going to read a description to you, and then think about what you're seeing in your mind. So are you seeing words? Are you seeing an actual image? Can you see it, I guess? So listen right now and think about what you're seeing in your mind. A woman sits at a table. She is resting her chin upon her hands. Apples sit on the table to the right of her. A pineapple to her left. When you hear that description, are you seeing an image? Are you seeing words?
Actually, image.
Image, okay. So some people would see just the words. So here's what I read. I said, a woman sits at a table. She's resting her chin on her hands. Apples sit on the table to the right of her, and a pineapple to the left. So some people will see the words, and now that you can see and read what I was saying, you have it right in front of you. And some people are able to see a little bit of an image, somewhat fuzzy. Others have a more clear view, but it's sort of dreamlike. And then there's that very clear picture. So the first one was just audio, me telling you. You know, the second one, typing up, here's what I want, right? Third one, I have kind of a picture, but not really. Fourth, as you see, it gets to that clear picture of what I was describing. So try to use as much as you can for people to visualize exactly what's happening. All right. Okay, so in your projects, or as you're going through any large, if there's a ticket, a support ticket, or if you're doing a build, make sure you touch base frequently for your team or customers. So there are oftentimes, if you're working on a large project, there are touch bases with project managers, and those are great. But also it's helpful to ensure that you're touching base between those to ensure you're still on the right path. So that would be, you know, if it's a weekly touch base, or if you have a high ticket item, you're supporting someone, you're trying to troubleshoot an issue, it would be more frequently. So you need to have a turnaround. It has to be fixed within 24 hours. Make sure you're touching base throughout the day to ensure that you're on the right path, to make sure that this is getting done correctly. So always say, and I say here too, repeat what they're saying so that you can make sure that you're hearing what they're saying and they are understanding what you're doing. One of the things I've noticed is that often projects can go fairly smooth, and it seems like you're having touch bases with a project manager and things seem like they're okay, because a lot of times it can be a check the box activity, meaning, okay, let's get this done. We did it, check, move on to the next thing. But if you're not being clear in those touch bases as far as what has been done and what has happened and what the next steps are, then it can start going down the wrong road, or something could happen, something could break down the road if the next team who has their next steps, you're not communicating, okay, this is what I saw, here's what might happen. So be sure to touch base maybe a little more frequently than what the project manager or what you feel like is necessary. Always do a little bit more just so that you can be sure that you're staying on the right track. Okay, and as I said, always make sure the next steps are clear. I actually had this experience yesterday. So this is something that you're going to work on, or you're going to see in your career for a lot, is people will say, here's the outcome. I have completed this and here's what happened. And so they're very clear on that touch base. They'll list out exactly what they did and what happened, and that was great. But then at the end of it, I realized, wait a second, well, what comes next? That's great. I like the outcome, but whose turn is it? Do we need to then go test it? Is it somebody who needs to move something into development or production environment? What's the next step to keep this project moving forward? So always be clear. So in your touch bases, what you've done, what the outcome was, and be sure to include the next steps and who's in charge of it. So if it's the customer that they need to do the next step to see what happens next, let them know. If it's one of your team members, same thing, let them know. That will help keep the ball rolling on some of these projects or some of these tasks that you're doing. All right. Okay, so I always have things to remember. And a big thing is when you go into a career or when you go into a project, just remember you don't know it all. So if you make assumptions, okay, this might be this, that's great. You can test to see if it's this. But always remember, you could be working from the curse of knowledge. You could see things differently because of what you know from your past or what you've learned in school. So make sure that you're communicating fully, even if some people might know some of that information. I always say IT, it's a great field, but it does require more than just technical skills. You will have to have this additional layer of communication to bridge that gap in understanding. And then, of course, work from accomplishments and past wins. So it can be very tough, but always remember that you have achieved a lot. I mean, just to be, at university in IT, that's amazing. A lot of people don't get that opportunity. I didn't. So that's an amazing accomplishment. Use that knowledge that you're learning now to help you get through some of these maybe more difficult projects or tasks, and leverage those skills as best you can. Okay, and I had this summary page of the steps I used in this deck of the best processes or the um, best practices that you can use to help communicate through some of your processes, projects, and troubleshooting. So going back over, starting with the end in mind, using descriptive communication, touch base frequently, always be clear on the next steps. And then at the end, just be positive and learn from your experiences. And that will really help you move the needle and communicate clearly and have a successful career in IT. So in the last piece is, are there any questions?
Ma'am, actually, you have
Yeah, good evening.
explained in a very, yeah, please speak.
Yeah, ma'am, good evening. Can I ask one question?
Sure.
Ma'am, how and when will my performance be renewed in this IT sector?
Could you repeat that?
Ma'am, how and when will my performance be renewed in this IT sector?
Um,
Rhythm,
I'm not sure.
you're asking about your performance revival or something. What are you saying?
So means when will my performance be renewed in this IT sector means how and often we discuss your performance goals and obstacles etc. Means how
Okay,
our goals
so
get tracked and measured. Hello.
yes. So, okay. So
Yes, ma'am.
that is dependent upon the organization that you work with. So that is actually another thing. Ask for feedback. I should have added that. That's a really good point, a very good call out. You can ask for feedback from your peers, from your team, and from your customers as well, just to see how you're doing with all of this. Some organizations have annual reviews where they're going to talk about your performance and how you've done. Others have quarterly, some don't have any, but it's always good to have at least once a year to really find out how you're doing or where you could improve. Because without that feedback, you're not going to know. So that actually is a really good point.
Yes, ma'am, all right. But how are goals set and tracked and measured in this IT sector?
I'm sorry?
Ma'am, like he's
Ma'am,
asking that how we can set our goals in our field for like in
yes,
IT
ma'am.
sector, how we can set our goals and we can track it on daily basis that
Yes,
is we are achieving our goals in that particular field or not.
Oh,
yes,
I
ma'am.
see what you're saying. Okay. Okay. Um, that's a really good question. And it's certain things are, personal to you, what you want to achieve, obviously, where your goals are. Definitely, going into your career, because you guys are a fresh start, make sure you write down what your long-term goals are, what your short-term goals are. Break it down that way so that you can know, okay, this is what I want to achieve if it's 5 years or 10 years. And then what are the little goals in order to get there? Um, you could even break it down even more on a monthly basis. If there's a certain courses you need to take, or whether they're free or paid for, or if they're LinkedIn, see if you need to take certain classes or read certain books. Make sure that you're breaking down your goals into small parts so that you can, on a monthly basis, on a 6-month basis, you can try to move that needle to get to your goals. But
Ma'am,
those are very personal to you and specific to you.
ma'am, it is important to gather this information early on.
I'm sorry?
But I guess, ma'am, actually, he's asking that it is important to gather these kind of goals and knowledge what we seek from our field at the early stages of our work. But I guess when you work in that field, then you'll get experience about what is the environment and atmosphere around. Then you can be
Right.
able to achieve set your goals, and you can able to track it down as well.
Right.
All right, but how often it's performance feedback given? I'm asking this.
And so that varies on the organization that you work for. So some do, usually it's annual, usually. But I would recommend trying to get that a little more. And so you can ask. And that's going to be really up to you to ask for that feedback and get it in a more frequent basis, because people tend to go only by the company standard oftentimes. So if it's once a year, then you're only going to get it once a year. But I would definitely recommend doing that more frequently. But it is based on organizational practices.
Yeah, okay, ma'am. All right. Thank you.
Are there
Thank
any
you
other
so.
questions?
I guess you have explained it in very sorted way that at each and every step you have uh, question our all kind of queries whatever we can have. And if somebody has any kind of question, then they can feel free to ask.
Right. So being sure that, when you're in these processes, making sure that they feel open to ask, but also, that you're explaining in terms that they're definitely understanding. Right. So that it's really making sure that that line of communication is open between you and your teammates, or you and your customer, you and your project team, so that you guys can work together as best as possible.
But ma'am, in today's session, there's one thing which I get to enlighten myself with, and that is that technology is not enough. Like technology is not only thing for the IT sectors. There are much more things which we need
Right.
for being in that sector.
Right. So it's funny because when I think about some of the most successful people in IT, one of them was, the reason he was very successful was because he had some kind of skill. It was really a skill that he was able to communicate to multiple groups, regardless of the level and skill set of the group. He was able to switch gears and communicate in a way that it was on their level and they could understand. So there were also team members on that same team where they could have had the best technical skills ever. Like they could be just a star in their field, but then they didn't have the ability to communicate with people who didn't understand, say it was basis, or say it was, development or full stack. They could communicate only with their peers. And so, yes, you have to be able to communicate to others, because what you're doing, you're providing services, you're fixing issues, you're building new things. So it's really critical that you do have this level of communication to be able to speak to your audience at whatever level that they're at, so they can understand the work that you're doing. So it is something to start now thinking about how you're going to be able to explain some of the projects and processes that you're doing so that it can be understood to your audience.
Yes, ma'am. Like working in a team means to grow together, to learn
Right.
together, and to represent together the progress which you are making. So
That's
thank you, ma'am. We are very glad to have you today.
Sorry to interrupt. Can you guys hear me? I got a question.
Yes.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, Mike, I don't know if this session should cover up this question, but it's something like how can a person be productive if they are like working on something? For example, if I'm like coding something and like I cannot be like able to find answer on a Stack Overflow, like there are so many things that you can distract you. I mean, like YouTube is one way in once you are like there. So yeah, how can a person be productive if they are like working in that? situation. I'm not sure if you should cover this up.
So if they're, so if I'm hearing you correctly, you're asking how to remain productive if you have a lot of distractions?
That's correct, because there are like many applications. There are like Instagram, WhatsApp. You don't even have to like scroll in Instagram. I don't know how to like get to Reels. I'm like really new to it, but once you get there, it auto scrolls. So yeah, you can like waste like multiple hours there. So yeah, if you get my question correctly, can you like help me out with this thing?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that also, it sounds like you're gonna have to set some standards and goals for yourself with that. The best thing I do, this sounds kind of silly. Sometimes I'll set a timer just to make sure I can complete the task within a certain time, so I'm not getting distracted and pulled a different way. It's not just with those tools that can be a distraction, although in IT, you guys have a lot of, I think because you're working with technology, you're probably more likely to have some of those distractions that you listed than others who don't. But it's easy to get pulled in other directions, regardless of your profession. So it's really good to cut out time in your day to say, okay, I have got to get this one task done. It really, if I think about the steps without looking at my computer screen, without looking at any technology, these steps will take me 20 minutes. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to carve out 30 minutes, give myself a little extra time, and try to get that done. And that way you can set a timer. You can just start it, watch the time. Okay, I've got to get this next piece done. Can't look at that. Got to get this next piece done. If somebody's calling me, I will tell them I'll, call them back later, just so that you can get that element done. It is very easy at work to become distracted, whether it be something on a computer, a phone, or even a coworker who's asking questions. And a lot of those tasks can take longer than anticipated because of those distractions. So it really is a work in progress to try to make sure that what you're doing is just focusing on that element to get it done. That's a risk and a learning process, a learning curve for all of you being new in work to how to get that information done.
Yeah. Okay, so basically you're saying that I should like keep a note, and whatever task I'm choosing, I just gotta make sure that I like put timer on it, and like I make sure that every task should go through this, like putting it on the note, and like make you know what I'm trying to say. So basically you're trying to say that, okay? My internet got stuck. Anybody can hear me?
Yeah, you are audible. Maybe like she has a network problem.
Okay. I wonder how foreigners can have network problem, because they tend to like have better internet connections than us.
Well, she has explained amazing about the communication skills. I think she got disconnected because of some technical issue, but she will connect again.
Yeah, I think I got the answer of my question as well. So yeah, that sounds great.
And yes, communication is very much important in any other field, not only about the IT field. And the term which she has told, that is the curse of knowledge. Uh, you know, it's very much difficult for us to understand that what we are expecting from the front person. Whether it's very much difficult for me as a teacher also, that what the students are expecting from me, or it's also a bit confusing for students also some of the times, that what teacher is expecting from them. So every time if we organize a session, if I just say, and I just try to pick up the students, yeah, students, we are having this session. This is the topic. This is the speaker, and it will be beneficial for you to attend this. It, it it's it got tough. I don't know what the student think, or whether they don't get the point which I've been expecting from them. Because as a teacher, it's very much important for me to give them best, not only best of the best. So that's what I'm trying always, that just give the student best of the best. Okay, so yeah, definitely it's a curse of knowledge. Samya, isn't it?
Yes, maybe.
Okay, you know, you very well know that I'm trying really hard. Okay, I guess she got
Yes,
connected.
sir.
Alexis, are you there?
Yes, I had to call in. I apologize. My network just shut down. It says I have no internet. I
Okay, okay.
apologize.
Yeah, it's okay, Alexis. Yeah, it's okay, Alexis. Yeah, Alexis, yeah. I just want to say that, Alexis, that you have explained very basic and the core terms which are required for the students to learn as a part of a communication. And I just want to tell that we are having students who are intelligent, who are having a great mind. They do perfect coding. I just say perfect because they are good coders, and they work on various projects. But somewhere they lack is the communication, especially if
Right.
you talk about, especially if you talk about that's the English language. So in regarding to that, we used to conduct some training sessions apart from their curriculum or the syllabus. They are having some communication skills kind of training programs we used to conduct, so that they can get aware of where they are lagging, and they must learn and come up with some more ideas, and have some better communication skills apart from the coding or the programming they used to do.
Right. I think, I'm so sorry. I'm having even trouble with my phone. Could you repeat that?
Are you able to hear?
Yes, I can hear. Yes.
Hey, Alexis, I just saying that it's really important for the students to be perfect in communication. Not only coding matters, but communication also matters. That's the point.
Right. Yes, indeed. It really does. It really is a big piece of this profession, more so than I think a lot of people who get into IT realize, because you are talking to people who don't understand a lot of even basic technology. I mean, if I think about just my dad and his generation, like he doesn't understand really the ins and outs of the internet. So it can be much more basic of explaining and having to really sit down with people to explain even from start to finish some of the elements that you think may be easy, but it's not to everybody.
Yes, absolutely. And we were also talking about the curse of knowledge. That's a good term which you have told us today in this presentation. That, and I'm also telling the students that I try a lot. That means best of the best I can deliver to you. And this might be curse of knowledge, that you might not be understanding that what I am expecting from you, or it might be a issue from my side that what you are expecting from me, I am not getting it. There might be some confusion.
Right. That I think that often happens, and the curse of knowledge happens to everybody. It's not just in IT, but we do in IT. I feel like you have to be more aware of that, just because you have a very niche program where there's so much to it. You've learned so much on the back end of how things work and how technology is functioning. So you have so much more information than the average person that you're probably using to make certain decisions, and other people don't have that same information. So it's you have to be careful, because you could be working from information that you have that no one else does.
Yes, absolutely. Students, do you have any more questions you can ask to her? Well, this is one of the it's one of the best session I have attended so far. And Alexis, you are really amazing that you have explained all these things in a very what about the communication skills a student should have, or not only about the students, any person who want to work in a particular industry, they must possess these skills. So it's really informative, it's really knowledgeable. I'm really glad to have you as a speaker here. From my side, not only from my side, from student side also. Samya?
Oh, very good. Well, I'm glad I could help. I really, I hope you guys all the best. You guys had some really, really tough questions and, some definite hurdles that I hadn't even heard of as far as the communications tests and some additional layers of tests and challenges that being just an English speaker working out of the United States, I did not have the answers to, and I do apologize, but it is worth something. If you know that's coming, start now to investigate, how to help yourself with that, because that is definitely something I had not heard of, and I want you guys to be successful in your careers.
Thanks, Alexis. Actually, we don't have such kind of mentor here available. Though students got training of communication from the experts who are from India itself, but this is for the first time we have invited a person from outside the country, and it's awesome. It's really awesome.
Very good.
Yes,
Very good.
and even getting a point of view of an IT professional or a professional which is being in their industry is really, we are very glad that we get your point of view about the field actually, and that's going to be really helpful if we start our future in that field, ma'am. That's really thankful of you.
Oh, great. Well, I'm glad this has been helpful. I was hoping I could at least provide some information for you to take with you. So.
Well, thanks a lot, Alexis. And we also wish you for the best of the best in your work, in your career. And I hope the students enjoyed a lot this session. They got a lot from this session. And maybe in coming future, we are expecting if they need certain help or related to some IT industry or some communication, they will surely be in a position to communicate with you for that.
Of course, of course. I am on LinkedIn as you found me, and definitely if you guys have additional questions, please connect with me and ask them, or you can share my email. That's fine as well too. So I can be available if you guys need me again. I'm really glad to help out in any way that I can.
Thanks, Alexis. So, Soumya, I request you to have last words for Alexis.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir, sure. Thank you very much, ma'am, that you have given your fruitful time for us, and that's going to be very helpful. And I would like to thank all the patient.
You would like to, I'm sorry, that last
I
part
would
you
like
cut
to
out?
sorry.
The last part, it cut out a little bit.
No, it was just a network issue. It's okay. It's all right.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you all.
Thanks a
And
lot,
I
Alexis.
would like to
Yeah,
thank all the patientful students who have attended this session. And ma'am, you are amazing. And this was a very interactive session I have attended. And we would like to have more sessions with you on for the experiences which you have, if you would like to share with us.
Of course, anytime.
Ma'am, thank you so much for meeting with us. It was such a pleasure to learn more about the position. I'm very excited with this opportunity to join with us.
All
Yes,
right.
thank you,
Well,
sir. Thank you, sir and ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
all right. Thank you so much.
So if nobody has any another question, let me end the session, sir.
yeah, sure. Thanks, Alexis. Thank you all students for joining this session. And yeah, have a good day. We are ending this session.
All right, everybody, have a wonderful evening.
Thank
Thanks,
you, ma'am.
Alexis. Thank you.
All right.
Thank
And
you.
have a wonderful morning, ma'am.
All right.
Thank you